Hello YouTube, welcome to another GizChina Germany review. This time we have a look at a device from a category that hasn't been covered here so far, and that's Android gaming handhelds. Usually those gadgets aren't too good, since often the hardware just sucks and most of the time the software part isn't well thought out either. Anyway, one of the latest devices from China is the GPD XD, and this one seems rather promising. I own one for almost a month now. Time to share my experiences and thoughts with you guys. Wanna join me? Keep watching then. The GPD XD comes in this slim box, which features a booklet style closed with magnets on the side. This reminds a little about Meizu phones, which come in similar packagings. Inside we find the gaming console, one charger and a micro USB cable. There is no manual since a video manual is included inside the device's firmware. Design-wise, the GPD XD looks very similar to the Nintendo 3DS, just with one display and a much larger gamepad. The design is based on a clamshell body made from plastic. Unfortunately, the device looks and feels kinda cheap, since you feel the gaps and edges of the single body parts, and also not all the parts have the same finish. For example, the top is glossy while the remaining body parts are matte. Despite of those design flaws, the GPD XD is apparently at least built in a solid way. I already dropped it one time and it survived without any damage. The gamepad also leaves a good impression, at least at the first look. I also like how the GPD XD feels inside the hands. Yep, at 312 grams it's kinda heavy, but as soon as you flip it open, the weight gets well balanced and it doesn't feel heavy anymore at all, making up for a pleasant gaming experience. The way buttons and other parts of the GPD XD are spread around the body appear to be well thought out. I'm able to conveniently reach all buttons. Also the speakers are well placed, since they never get covered entirely by your hands, so you will never experience a muffled sound. The ports are placed on the rear of the handheld and include one headphone jack, a micro HDMI port, one micro USB port with OTG, and one micro SD card reader for memory expansion purposes. The GPD XD comes with a 5-inch display with a resolution of 720p. This resolution is absolutely enough for a 5-inch panel, especially if it's a good one. It also cuts down on GPU load, which means improved gaming performance. Yes, there would have been space for a larger screen indeed, but you always have to think about if this would actually make sense. The GPD XD isn't only a platform for Android games, but for emulators as well. And as a matter of fact, the larger a screen and the higher its resolution gets, the uglier older games will look. Regarding the panel quality, I don't have anything to complain about. Contrast and viewing angles are up to a very perfect level in my opinion, and colors look very intense, which I like for gaming devices. The brightness is very high as well, enough for outdoor gaming, but you have to adjust it manually since there is no light sensor. The screen comes with a multi-touch panel, which also works fine, but does feature a surface made from plastic, which means that it is pretty crack proof but not very scratch proof. Anyway, if you take care about dust and other stuff before cleaning the screen or closing the lid, you will be on the safe side. Games and emulators need sufficient processing power, especially on the GPU side. This is why the GPD XD comes with a Rockchip RK3288 SoC. This chipset is mainly used for tablet PCs and set-top boxes, and the GPD XD is actually the smallest device with this SoC I've seen to date, yet still there are no overheating issues at all. You really notice almost no heat on the body, just gets a little more than hand warm even after hours of playing. The RK3288 is based on 4 ARM Cortex A17 32-bit cores clocked at 1.8 GHz. The GPU is a Mate T760 GPU with 4 clusters. This means that the GPU power is quite a bit higher than, for example, on the MediaTek MT6752 SoC. The raw CPU power, however, is a bit lower. Anyway, that's not a bad thing since it still is totally sufficient for everything you will do on your GPD XD, and benchmarks confirm that with maxed out in the 3D Mark 720p test and about 42k points in Antutu. The chipset is combined with 2GB of LPDDR3 RAM and 16GB or 32GB of internal memory. The price difference between those memory options are $10. I have to say that I believe 16GB to be totally sufficient since you can use a microSD card for expansion at any given time. Other specs of the GPD XD are Wi-Fi connectivity, one OTG port for external peripherals, and even an HDMI port which enables you to also use the GPD XD as a media box or stationary gaming console. It can play 4K videos, by the way, just in case you wonder. So how's performance in real life? Well, pretty much perfect, I would say. There isn't any Android game the GPD XD can't play smoothly these days. Also, emulators are handled perfectly well, and that includes the Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, and even the Sony PSP. Seems like GPD went for the right hardware combo here. Now let's talk about software. The main issue with gaming handhelds based on Android often is the software part, since often they just come with a naked Android which has to be configured yourself to provide at least a half decent mobile gaming experience. Anyway, this is not the case with the GPD XD since the company really paid some attention to detail here. The GPD XD is running a well-optimized, smooth-running Android 4.4.4 which got a special launcher on top that is optimized for both the control with the gamepad or one finger. It is based on different categories under which icons for apps and features are placed. Those categories give you access to quick settings to your Android applications and games, as well as an extensive emulator category. If the installed app is a game, they will still be placed here in applications, but you can long press one icon and then click move to move the specific application into the gaming directory here. The emulator category is my favorite place. Next to some main applications, you will find a few subcategories here which represent different gaming platforms, for example the Nintendo 64. Inside your internal memory you will find a folder called ROMs, in which you will find a subfolder or more subfolders representing those platforms. So as soon as you copy a ROM inside one of those folders, they will appear within those subcategories here, and you can start them with one single tap. The most interesting feature, however, is the Happy Chick emulator. This is a very complex application that combines tons of different emulators under one hood. Despite of fully integrated and configured emulators, it also offers you an extensive community and the possibility of sharing and downloading save games and configurations for your emulators. There also is a download center, as you can see here, in which you can download ROMs for pretty much all platforms. Plus, it comes pre-configured for the GPD XD's Gamepad, so you are ready to play right from the start. Anyone being very focused on Android games, however, might wonder how one can control these games with a gamepad, since actually not all Android games support gamepads. Well, for this purpose, GPD included a mapping feature which you can always trigger inside your games using this button. So once I press that, I get the mapping screen displayed, and here I see all buttons of the gamepad represented on the screen, and now I can drag those buttons on the places on the screen where I usually would control the game with my fingers, and this way I can still play games without a touch screen with the gamepad, even if it's not supported natively. So that's a very nice feature, and it actually works very well. You can configure it really for all your different games independently. Next, I want to talk about the gamepad itself a bit. This one is kind of a mix of an Xbox and PlayStation controller with a few extra buttons thrown in. The most important elements are 2 analog sticks, 1 D-pad, as well as the classic A, B, X Y buttons, which also contain the PlayStation signs X, triangle, square and circle. The gamepad itself works very well but has a few flaws though. First of all, the analog sticks are very sensitive but you cannot move them much. Everyone who ever played with a PSP will be familiar with it, since those analog sticks equal the one of the PSP, just with a different surface on top that feels a lot more comfortable. Before you will enjoy gaming with them, you will have to get used to them, since you need to do very small and precise movements to get the desired results. Another part that isn't quite perfect is the D-pad. If you press it into one direction, it often happens that you press it into another direction as well by accident. You need to take care to press the D-pad straight. Again, this is something you get used to and it isn't much of a problem anymore from then. Something I dislike a bit as well is how loud those shoulder buttons on the rear are. You hear a loud click every time you press them, which isn't annoying when you play alone, but might disturb others around you, for example, when playing in the evening in the bed and your partner's trying to sleep. I would have preferred GPD to use more silent buttons on the XD. Regarding reception quality, I don't have to tell you much this time, since the GPD XD does only support Wi-Fi 802.11 BGNAC and nothing else. The antenna seems to be a very good one, since I didn't experience any issues with the signal strength or bandwidth drops. It just works. Audio quality also is pretty good on the GPD XD. The two front speakers generate a nice stereo sound and sometimes even some surround effects come through. Basses are present as well and there is no distortion on maximum volume level. All in all, they did a pretty good job here. Headphones do sound nice as well, but for a perfect sound you should install some equalizer application or wiper for Android. The Handheld doesn't have issues with headphones that come with a remote. Last topic left to talk about is the battery, which according to GPD offers a capacity of 6000 milliamps. I verified that and actually my measurement was more than 7000 milliamps. This makes me believe that the battery is actually a little larger than 6000 milliamps, maybe around 6500 or so. One fully charged battery mostly is enough for a full week of usage for me if I play for around 1 to 2 hours every evening. The screen on time at 50%, screen brightness is around 8 hours and 44 minutes. Recharging the battery is a very speedy process at about 2.5 hours using the power supply that comes with the device. My verdict: it's been a while since I had so much fun with a new gadget the last time. It just is extremely convenient to have access to such a large variety of different games and platforms on just one single portable device with a proper integrated gamepad. The GPD XD is used a lot by me now, and a nice side effect is that my phone's battery lasts longer since I stopped playing on it almost entirely. Of course, the question is if you really need something like that. Well, the answer to that might be no for most of you, but still, once you held the GPD XD in your hands for a while, you don't want to give it away anymore. In addition, it isn't too expensive, or at least I think so. Currently, the GPD XD is priced at about $140, which isn't too much considering what you get. On the other hand, you get a PlayStation Vita or Nintendo 3DS for the same or even less money. In the end, it will depend on what you need, if it is worth a purchase or not. Do you want a mainstream device or something exceptional? Do you want one single up-to-date platform or access to a lot of older platforms plus one up-to-date platform? This is something you have to decide on your own. So that's it for my review of the GPD XD. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription to the channel if you did. If you have any questions left, feel free to drop a comment down below the video. If you like what we are doing at GizChina Germany, make sure to follow us at Facebook, Google+, and Twitter as well. Next you see an extensive gaming demo of this device, and I say bye bye, over and out.